Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to INQlusive, the Inquirer webinar series presented by the Philippine Daily Inquirer. My name is Dax Lucas, and I will be your moderator for this live stream event. INQlusive is a series of virtual seminars produced by the Philippine Daily Inquirer and spearheaded by the members of the Inquirer's editorial team. It takes on an inclusive approach to learning. Everyone is encouraged to participate in the discussion online. This afternoon, our topic is 2021 Revitalizing the Philippine Economy. Our guests, who are business leaders and experts in economics, will talk about these very important issues for us going forward. We're in a critical time in our country's history, and we want to see what's over the hill. But before we introduce our guests, we would like to thank our sponsor for making this live stream event possible, San Miguel Corporation. San Miguel, your world made better. Thank you very much, guys. And before we introduce our guests, we would also like to give an exclusive offer to our viewers. The Philippine Daily Inquirer is offering a 30-day free trial of its digital edition called Inquirer Plus. We are flashing the QR code on your screens now, so you can get more details on how to take advantage of this exclusive offer. Okay. Now, it is time to introduce our guest speakers for today's session. Our first speaker is Secretary Carl Kendrick T. Chua of the National Economic and Development Authority. Mr. Chua became Acting Secretary of NEDA on April 20, 2020. And prior to his appointment, he was the Undersecretary for the Strategy, Economics, and Results Group in the Department of Finance. In that capacity, he helped the government implement its 10-point socio-economic agenda by ensuring equitable and sustainable financing through the Comprehensive Tax Reform Program. At NEDA, Secretary Chua's three priorities amid the ongoing public health crisis include fast-tracking the national ID system, the economic recovery plan, and the Build program of the administration. Good afternoon, Mr. Secretary. Please.
Good afternoon, Dax.
The floor is yours.
Thank you for the invitation, and good afternoon to my co-panelists, Rich. Let me, in lieu of a presentation, just talk about 5 main points that I want to share with you and the audience around our economic recovery. My first point is that the economy is strong enough to recover if we enable it to do so. We started 2020 with a very strong foundation. Our GDP growth averaged 6% between 2016 and 2019. And that is a high, respectable growth amidst the growing uncertainties and the trade war. We also saw our fiscal performance improved. Our credit rating improved to the range of BBB plus to A minus. And this is not just about upgrading the credit rating. It's upgrading everyone's lives, because everyone who has to make an investment, whether it's a business, whether the government borrowing to finance infrastructure, or households borrowing for a car loan, a personal loan, or a housing loan, all would benefit from lower rates, which we achieved by having a strong credit rating. We also achieved the highest revenue and the lowest debt to GDP ratio. And all of these have been enabled by foundational reforms that we have done prior to COVID, like the series of tax reform, the rice tariffication law that brought down prices for everyone, the universal healthcare, and the national ID. And as a consequence of the ECQ or the GCQ, our economic performance was affected negatively. That is a trade-off if you shut down a big part of the economy. For 9 to 10 months, we were in some form of quarantine, and that's been the longest quarantine experience by the Philippines, and is among the longest in the world. As a result, GDP growth became negative. At first, it was minus 0.7 in the first quarter. And then when we lockdown severely under ECQ, it was minus 16.9%. Then it gradually improved to around minus 11.5% in the third quarter. Now, unemployment also followed the same story. If you open the economy, unemployment falls. If you restrict the economy, unemployment rises. So we started with 5.3% unemployment rate in January, went up to 17% during ECQ, went down to 10% during GCQ in the third quarter, and now we are at 8.7%. And we continue to see that to go down, if not for the typhoons and the flooding. So in other words, my first message is that the economy, again, is strong enough to recover if we enable it to do so. Unfortunately, we restrict the economy from opening up because of our fear of the virus. Now let me go to my second message. To recover, the key is to manage the risks, not to avoid them. In the first few months of COVID, we were scared. We didn't know what to do. We didn't experience COVID ever in our lives. So we were very risk averse. But now the solution is really to manage the risk. And we have an opening to do so because we have seen significant progress on the health side. It is a health problem in the beginning, and therefore we have to address the health side first. And we see a lot of progress. Example, we are testing by the tens of thousands daily. That is why our cases is more than 442,000 as of December 8th. But, the active case is just 25,000 plus, or 5.7%. So the far majority have recovered. And of the active cases, only 8.3% or 2,162 are actually in need of hospital care. These are the severe or critically ill. And the good news here is we have invested a lot on hospital care. We have 22,661 COVID beds. Only 35% of that was occupied as of last week, as of early this week. So in other words, we have this opening actually to manage the risk better and take care of the people. Unfortunately, because of the quarantine and the pandemic, there are many jobless people, those who have lost their income, those who are hungry, those who are depressed, and also those who are dying from non-COVID diseases. In fact, as of September, out of 390,000 deaths, 96% are because of non-COVID cases, like cancer, diabetes, high blood, heart attack. And we have to also care for them because that is the reality. The far majority don't have COVID, but they have other diseases. So again, my second point is to recover, we have to manage the risks, not avoid them. Let me now go to my third point. What is now the main intervention to further open up the economy? Well, the one thing we noticed is that our public transport over the months did not catch up as we opened the economy. And that is why we are pursuing this opening, beginning with the one seat apart or with barriers in public transport to separate passengers so that we can match the demand and the supply as we open the economy. In September, in NCR, only 35% of public transport were operating. In October, we managed to bring that up to 46%. And I'm hoping with the new data, we can see even more in November and December. But we have to do that following the health guidelines. The second is after we have listened to the health experts' advice, I think we have to begin considering the gradual opening of schools. Perhaps not immediate, but gradually allow face-to-face or hybrid in the lowest risk areas. There are many provinces at the MGCQ today and have not seen any cases for weeks and months already. So perhaps we can also begin this because, what is at stake here is education of our children and the future productivity of our country if they do not catch up. We're also looking at relaxing the age group further, so long as, again, they follow the minimum health standard and no reversal of the quarantine. Instead of having entire regions or province in quarantine, we can consider localized lockdown. So again, my third message is to continue this gradual incremental way of opening the economy. Let me now go to my fourth message. To support this opening of the economy, which is the most important intervention, I believe, to restart jobs and lost income, we can support that with our policy reforms. We have already Bayanihan 1 and 2 in place. Congress has recently approved the CREATE bill, which gives everyone lower income tax and provides more performance-based and targeted incentives. We're just waiting for BICAM to act on that. We have also seen Congress approve the FIST bill, which basically allows banks to dispose bad loans and assets so that they can free up more capital and funds to lend to micro, small, and medium enterprises. They will soon, I think, approve, or if not today, the budget for 2021. And that has a big component on health and infrastructure, which are important to getting us on our road to recovery. And finally, if they can, we hope Congress can pass the guide bill, which basically allows us to help insolvent firms, those that are critically important to the economy, recover. So there is a package of reform that we are offering, combination of both fiscal, monetary, financial, and other means to address the crisis. And finally, my fifth and last point is this debate is not really about health versus economy. It's actually about saving lives from COVID and also non-COVID diseases, including hunger. So in summary, what we have presented in government is a package of reform and a package of recovery program wherein we address a multitude of problems, beginning with the health, followed by opening up the economy, increasing the confidence of the people. And with that, we are likely to begin our recovery in 2021 and see a return to 2019 economic levels by mid-2022. And there are three things that will allow that to happen. Number one, the cooperation of everyone in following the health standards, because 95% of the time, your safety, your health, or your chances of getting or not getting COVID is whether you are hands using alcohol, face masks, and so on. Number two is the proactive stance of the government to provide the policy interventions for recovery. And number three, of course, is the timely availability of the vaccine. So let me end with that, Dax. Thank you.
Fantastic. I already feel more optimistic about things. All right. I love how Secretary Chua uses data to back up his arguments. Thank you, Secretary Chua, for your presentation. I'm sure our audience has questions, and we will reserve those for a little later. For now, we have our next speaker, Mr. Richard Sanz. He is the CEO and founder of Food Asia Group, a Philippine-based group of companies with interests in retail, manufacturing, restaurant operations, franchising, logistics, real estate, and e-commerce. Mr. Sanz also chairs and sits on the boards of 10 Philippine and foreign companies in China, Singapore, and the UAE. He is the immediate past president and now chairman of the Philippine Franchise Association, the umbrella organization of franchising in the country. The PFA is the leading authority in the international franchise community, especially in the APAC region, as evidenced by PFA's continuing secretariat role in the Asia Pacific Franchise Confederation, and it is also a member of the World Franchise Council. Mr. Sanz, take it away. It's yours.
Thank you, Dax. Good afternoon to everyone, and good afternoon as well to my co-panelists, Secretary Carl. Good afternoon. Nice to see you again. So, yeah, I think I have a short presentation. Can we have it up on screen, please? Okay. So, I'm here to basically talk about MSMEs, but in particular, the franchising sector, wherein 80% of our members are MSMEs, and it kind of reflects the status of the MSMEs in the Philippines. So let me tell you something first about the PFA. So it was founded in 1995, a pioneer franchise association in the Philippines. The members include biggest franchise brands, both local and foreign, but actually it's not updated, but up to 70 to 80% are MSMEs. So we have our fair franchising standards. So this is the code of ethics of PFA, wherein all the members should adhere to and comply to. So it's the home of the most trusted franchise brands of the Philippines. We are also internationally recognized. We are a member of the World Franchise Council, and currently we are the Secretariat of the Asia Pacific Franchise Confederation. Next slide, please. So just a glance at the contribution of the franchising sector to the economy of the Philippines. So please take note that these are figures pre-COVID, before the pandemic, before the lockdown. So the GDP contribution of franchising the Philippines is up to 7.8%. And this is really high comparing it to our other associations across the world, wherein the average is only 2.1 in other countries. But for the Philippines, the contribution for franchising is 7.8% pre-COVID. And the values of these three categories, you can see food consists 80% of these contributions. So a majority is still food, and the rest is broken down to retail and service. So retail are fashion brands like clothing, shoes, etc. And service, you have the massage salons, haircuts, etc. So of course, having 80% of our contribution on food. So we have high backward linkages or backward integration to agriculture. And in terms of taxes contribution, it's around 171 peso, 171 billion, 83 billion direct, and the rest is indirect through suppliers and other trade partners. Next slide, please. So the impact of COVID-19 very briefly. So we did a survey. Last May 6 to 25. This was during the height of the lockdown in the ECQ. And these were the figures. So 82% were concerned on the significant impact on the business operations. 72% expected more than half of losses in 2020 during the time. And the top concerns was 85% were concerned about a potential global recession, 57% decrease in consumer confidence, 53% lacked the company emergency plan, and 51% effect on the workforce and productivity. Next slide, please. So during ECQ, again, based on the same survey, our members experience a lot of store closures during ECQ, wherein 50% of the stores were closed. 50% were partially open, either in different days, and maybe some had shortened hours. Then a large percentage of employees were displaced during the ECQ, and 50% of our members let go of over 50% of their employees. So this is what happened during the COVID, during the ECQ. Next slide, please. Okay, so we also asked, what will the business do after ECQ? So 63% had temporary furloughs of employees due to the low demand, low consumer demand. 39% separation of staff, they had layoffs. 35% did streamlining and reduction of franchise operations, and 30% reduction of franchise operations. So the forecast after the lifting of the ECQ, 60% were not yet ready to resume mall operations. And I will be, I think there's a slide for this, but a lot of the challenges for that is really the lack of the public transportation. 70% will need at least 1 million to 20 million to normalize their operations after the ECQ. Top uses of additional funding is for working capital requirements, which is 53%, and the rest, 41%, is for the purchase of inventories and materials. Next slide, please. So how are PFA members adapting? So I would say I agree with and I strongly support Secretary Carl's statement that the economy is strong enough to begin with. It's just a matter of adapting the business and pivoting. So I'm sure everyone has saw during this pandemic that a lot of home-based businesses sprouted out, and these shows how entrepreneurial Filipinos are. And of course, in terms of the PFA members, a lot of repurposing, retooling, and pivoting happened during this pandemic. And not only the small, but also the big. You will see how Jollibee came up with frozen chicken joys available in the supermarkets. Potato Corner have been selling their French fries in the supermarkets. Even Shakey's have been selling frozen pizza. So most of the members were really struggling to survive, but everyone was fighting. Everyone was doing something to pivot. And I guess one of the good things that came out of the pandemic is the fourth item, going digital. Everyone was forced to do some sort of digital transformation. So everyone had to embrace online selling, e-commerce, even cashless payments. We have been advocating for the last maybe 2 to 3 years. And suddenly the pandemic happened, and everyone saw how convenient, how safe, how secure digital payments are. So I guess it's one of the silver linings that we are experiencing. And once we go back to the new normal, we are hoping that these behaviors will stay in place. Next slide, please. So just taking a look how are the PFA members now. So 56% are purely into franchising, but the others have pivoted and combined with other business models. So some did JV, joint ventures, some did distribution, some did home selling, home resellers. So 40% did that. But you will see 4% shifted to another business model. Next slide, please. Okay, then support needed. Of course, first on the left side is tax incentives. And I guess we have to thank Secretary Carl, because I think the CREATE bill is his brainchild, and we have been supporting this. I think this was still Train 2 originally before the pandemic happened, and it's really a big help for MSMEs, and it's up for BICAM approval. And I guess this is the largest stimulus for MSMEs. Imagine a 10% point reduction in corporate income tax, and for the MSMEs. So this will be very, very helpful in the recovery and the bouncing back of the MSMEs. So loans with longer grace period and relaxed credit terms will also be very, very helpful. The members, as I mentioned, are needing 1 to 20 million for capital expenditures, wage subsidies, and lastly, flexible rental schemes. And we are thankful for the big lessors and the malls who have given up to 70% discount on rental relief during the year. I think the challenge for the rental are the smaller independent landlords. But again, it depends on the negotiation per business. But with regards to the bigger lessors like the malls, we are very thankful for extending rental relief of up to 70%. Next slide, please. So conclusion, the PFA members and I guess the franchising sector as a whole are able to adapt to the COVID-19 disruptions, and Philippine franchising can once again be a powerful tool in creating businesses and jobs, but we need some help for the bounce back, as mentioned. Next slide, please. So we also did some support to our members during this time. So we did 9 free sessions from March 25 to 23. And this was not only for the members, it was actually attended by a lot of entrepreneurs. So we reached up to 20,000 participants per session, and we did 9 sessions from the March to July 23. Next slide, please. So we also did a Franchise Asia virtual conference. So there you can see the speakers. You have Secretary Monsec Berna and a lot of international speakers sharing their experiences during the pandemic. So I guess what this did for everyone was to share the best practices that the big companies were doing and relating it to the MSMEs. So a lot of the MSMEs could feel the support from the bigger brothers. Next slide, please. Okay, next slide. So we did a lot of webinars on investing in the right franchise with franchise presentation. So what we've noticed during the pandemic as well, so there were a lot of interest in franchising, mainly because a lot also were displaced and their jobs were lost. So a lot were looking at franchise opportunities during this time. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide. Okay, we also did a PFA cares for some help to the frontliners. Next slide. We were able to gather at least 1.2 billion and donated it to the hospitals and the cities as shown in screen. Next slide, please. Then we also were giving regular updates to the franchise sector on the developments and guidelines by the IATF and other government agencies. Next slide, please. So moving forward, before I close, I think we are beginning to see the light at the end of the long tunnel, and the past few months has been a lot better than the time of the lockdown. And as you see, there's a lot more confidence with people going out, following the health standards. I think Secretary Carl mentioned it well. The key is really to manage the risk and not avoid the risk, because we still have to live our lives and move forward. So the past few months has been better for retailers. Although it's a peak season, it's Christmas season, the demand might be maybe artificial because of the season, but we are very confident that come next year, starting January, with all these new developments on the health protocols. And I think one very good news for everyone is the development of the vaccines. So once we are able to access this, it will give a lot of confidence for the consumers and also for entrepreneurs as well. And I guess in closing, those businesses who are still standing at this time, who are surviving and who are fighting, will be an advantage to reap the opportunities once the economy bounces back. And it will, I guess, it will bounce back. I'm hoping it will bounce back sooner than later, and we are beginning to see it. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sanz, for sharing your insights with us. Don't you just love speaking with entrepreneurs? They're so full of optimism. All right. We will have our question and answer segment next, because I know you guys have a lot of questions, but we will take a very quick break to allow you to watch this video where we will plug our products. Okay, we'll be back after a few minutes, guys. See you in a while. Okay, we are back. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for tuning in to INQlusive, the Inquirer webinar series presented by the Philippine Daily Inquirer. This live stream would not have been possible without the help of our main sponsor, San Miguel Corporation, your world made better. Okay, our two panelists will be open to field a few questions, but I'd like to start with a few of my own. Secretary Chua, I'm just curious because I was in another webinar just a couple of days ago with some private sector economists, and they seem to be a little less optimistic, and they had their own data to back it up. Where is your optimism coming from about the growth prospects? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thank you, Dax. First of all, let me begin with the context. We came from one of the deepest, longest, and broadest quarantine. So according to the Oxford data, we have one of the deepest, most stringent quarantine. The longest, we've been having this since March, and the broadest, even parts of the country where there are hardly any cases are in some form of MGCQ. So as a result, we saw the contraction, and the DBCC revised it downwards to minus 8.5 to minus 9.5. So that's the context. But where is the optimism? The optimism is that we started 2020 at a very strong footing. I'll just give you two examples that I didn't mention a while ago. First, we promised to reduce poverty by 6 million by 2022. That was achieved in the first 3 years of the administration. We brought down the poverty rate from 23% in 2015 to 17% in 2018. 6 million Filipinos lifted out of poverty ahead of the 2022 target. Second, we also promised that by 2022, we would be an upper middle income country. Prior to COVID, we projected that would be 2 years achieved 2 years in advance. So in other words, we have a strong foundation. We have actually delivered In fact, of the 10-point socioeconomic agenda, we delivered 7 out of the 10, and we are working on the remaining 3. So that gives the optimism. Now, as I mentioned, artificially, we restrict the big part of the economy from operating, and therefore we cut jobs and sources of income. That's why we have already shifted our policy, not being just afraid of the virus and locking up people, but opening up the economy, opening up the public transport, and eventually getting as many people to actively participate, subject to the health standards. So I think that is the direction where we're headed. And if we do this, then 2021, we would be seeing positive growth, and even better in 2022.
Interesting. And that those concepts actually dovetail right into what Mr. Sanz is looking for the franchising sector to open things up. Mr. Sanz, I'm curious. How optimistic are you? Same question about the prospects in 2021, given the constraints we have, the still large constraints we have at present. Do you think 2021 will be, a whole lot better or a slight improvement for your members?
Okay, so let me give a caveat. Of course, I'm speaking from an entrepreneur's or a businessman's perspective. So entrepreneurs, I think you mentioned it, are by nature very optimistic. We always try to look at the good side out of everything. And I guess we started the year 2020, even the years before that, with tremendous growth. Business was good, consumer confidence was great, and franchising was growing by leaps and bounds. So we look at the lockdown as a temporary halt on this. But as we saw, what really gave a lot of confidence on this is seeing the past few months, wherein we had seen great improvements on the protocols by the government, a lot of better coordination with government agencies, with the national government and the LGUs. So it has been a big help, and I think it is reflected in the activity that we see in trade areas. So coming from that, we feel that as early as now, if we see improvement on protocols, then it will only improve going towards next year. So that's what we see. Why do I say that? Mainly, we have learned how to live with the virus. So as Secretary Carl said, just having your face mask, having your face shield, having your alcohol, washing your hands. These are basic but very effective ways to combat or protect yourself. And I think the public has also learned to adapt to these behaviors as well. And I guess when you go to the malls, you will see there's a lot more people, and the time, the operating hours has extended. And you will see, despite of this, more people going out, the number of cases hasn't gone up dramatically. In fact, we have seen it go down from the month of, I think when we peaked in August, and it had gone down to at least below 2,000 cases per day. And we are hoping, and I think the nice thing about it, even NCR is one of the lowest cases per day. So we have seen a lot of opening up, but we also have seen the cases dropping by, and we are hoping that this will improve further going into 2021. And of course, 2022, when the vaccine has, when the public has been inoculated with the vaccine, then hopefully everything will bounce back twice or even 3 times.
Oh, fantastic. From your mouth to God's ears, so to speak. We really hope you're right.
Hoping.
Secretary Chua, of course, the private sector can do things by itself, and the partnership with the government is always important when bringing the country's economic growth path back to its previous trajectory. I'm wondering, because a lot of market watchers have pointed to the need for greater fiscal initiatives on the part of the government. And I'm wondering, from where you sit at NEDA, are there any initiatives that would help facilitate greater fiscal spending going forward? Perhaps big ticket projects along the pipeline, or some measures that you're gonna push?
Thank you, Dax. First of all, let me say that the intervention that we are proposing is a package. And why do we have to do it as a package? Because this is what the people have been telling us in the various surveys that we conducted. Since April, the government has conducted 6 surveys of consumers and businesses. NEDA and DOF led it in partnership with World Bank, ADB, and other private firms. We are actually doing another round of business and consumer survey. And what do the people tell us? They tell us that they need help in terms of, for instance, delaying the payments of loans, utilities, rental. They need lower taxes or tax incentives. They need support for their workers. And that is why we designed our interventions as we have presented. So we have the CREATE bill that will lower taxes. And that is part of the fiscal response. So fiscal means either spending support or tax support. We have the FIS bill, which actually helps banks unload their bad loans and assets so they can lend more to businesses. Bayanihan 2 allows the deferment of rental, utilities payment, bank payments, and so on. We are also having some support like interest loan subsidies and the credit guarantee. So these are a package of support that we are giving, and that comprises the fiscal part. On the other hand, some people want support financially, and the government is not a bank, and the government's job is not to lend. That is why we have monetary and financial regulation relaxation to allow more banks to lend. Okay, and finally, those two will not be useful if we don't open the economy and manage the risk. So that is why it's always a package of reform. Now, next year, one of the biggest driver of our recovery will be the infrastructure. And we have put more than ₱1 trillion worth of infrastructure spending for the 2021 budget. That will create 1.7 million jobs and keep our infrastructure spending above the magic 5% of GDP needed for our recovery. So that is the set of interventions that we have.
That's so heartening to hear. $1 trillion of infrastructure spending, and of course the resulting multiplier effect on the rest of the economy. That's good to know. With regard to the funding, Secretary Chua just mentioned, I'm curious, Mr. Sanz. You said many of your members need anywhere from 1 to 20 million to help recover from the pandemic. Are they getting the kind of access to these funds now from banks, knowing that interest rates are at historic lows, or are they still having trouble accessing financing? What do you hear?
Yeah, well, I think that's where the challenge lies: the access to the funding. Of course, when you talk about banks, they would have their set of due diligence document requirements, and when we talk about MSMEs, when we talk about large corporations, of course, they have all these access to to funding. They have great relationship with the banks. But when you talk about MSMEs who don't have these privileged relationships, so it's a bit of a challenge. Now, of course, accessing clean loans. Most of the MSMEs don't have properties or real estate or collateral for loan security. So that's one of the challenge. And I guess another challenge is accessing the loans which were funneled through the some associations. And I guess it's the sheer volume of businesses that tried to avail of this. But yeah, it remains a challenge. But yeah.
Secretary Chua, if I may just be permitted to ask about one of your key initiatives, could you give us and I'm personally interested in this because it's been on the table for quite a few years now. Could you give us an update on where the national ID system is right now, and given I suppose the delays due to the pandemic?
Well, that's a very important question, Dax. So let me give you an update. So the Philippine Statistics Authority is the implementing agency for the national ID, and that is supported by a lot of agencies, DILG, DITC, DICT, DOST, NEDA, and so on, no? Even the BSP. So where we are now, because of the pandemic, we cannot register everyone, bring them to the registration center, falling in line, less than a meter apart from each other. Like if you register for voters ID, that might cause the spread of the virus. So we have designed the registration in 3 steps. The first step is instead of having a registration center, the PSA officials are going house to house in the priority 32 provinces among low-income families, bringing their tablets and collecting demographic information like your name, your birthday, your address, telephone, and so on. So as of day 46, since we started in October, we have already registered for step 1, 7.5 million out of the 9 million that we target this year. Next year, we continue to register 45 million more. Now, step 2, we'll start it probably next year. And this is the tricky part because they have to visit a registration center, use their fingerprints, put it in the biometric scan, use the iris scan to register their iris. This will cause some virus spread. No? So we have to be careful. That's why, yes, there has been some changes in our schedule, but we have adapted by going house to house so that they won't fall in line and avoid the spreading of the virus. Next year, we're hoping that with less quarantine restriction and more preparation, we can do this safely. We don't want the people falling in line, and that will be, in violation of the minimum health standard. So we will do it slowly. And then in step 3 next year, they will be getting their national ID card. And once we do that, they will be able to open bank accounts. In fact, in every registration center, Land Bank will be available to open bank accounts immediately so that the 70% of the population without bank accounts can immediately be financially included. So that is where we are, and that is our direction.
Great to hear that it's still happening, because I'm personally excited to have a seamless digital experience, without having to do all these cumbersome know your customer verification things. And good luck to you on that endeavor.
Thank you.
Okay, we're down to my last question here, and I'd like to throw it to Mr. Sanz. Okay, hypothetically, okay, let's say, knock on wood, I am an employee. I just lost my job. I have some kind of separation benefit, monetary separation benefit from my old company. And I've always wanted to try out being an entrepreneur. And, I've always thought about putting up a kiosk or a small store or a franchise in a location. And now I see that there are more vacant slots in malls. more spaces for rent. So my question is, with this money I have, let's say, 500,000 or so, is this the time to jump in with both feet into the franchising business, or should I wait for everyone else to recover first? Personally, how do you feel about these things?
Okay. So very good question, Dax. I think a lot of people will be able to relate to this because I think the first step is identifying what businesses are doing well during this time for you to be able to open. So let's take a step back. What are doing well? Okay, so of course, health-related businesses or franchises such as pharmacies, drugstores, medical clinics, even those that are selling cleaning material, cleaning agents, alcohol, they are doing extremely well. I heard that they are doing 2x, 3x, or even 5 times their pre-COVID sales. So definitely, the demand for this will be extended while this pandemic is still happening. And next, of course, everyone has to eat. Food is still a very popular choice, but it depends on the type of food. Of course, if you are getting into a fine dining or a casual restaurant wherein food is best experience when dining in, then it might be a bit challenging at this time. It might not be the best time. But if you are talking about food that is great for takeout, great for delivery, food that holds well for that travels well, then it might make sense to get into that business if you have that opportunity. And as you said, you are right. There are a lot of vacancies in the malls now. So if you have the capital, if you have the opportunity, if you have the product, if you have the right concept or the right franchise, then you might want to do it now. Those that are not doing well or quite challenged at these times are those in the service sector. Of course, people don't want to have a massage right now, don't want to have their nails done because it's a bit risky, because it's very personal, it's very close. So these are a bit of a challenge right now. But going back to your question, if now is the right time, again, if you are in the right business and you have that opportunity to get a prime space that you won't be able to get during normal times, then grab that opportunity.
So as with the old normal, you have to know the lay of the land, like anything. All right.
Right.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, Secretary Carl and Mr. Sanz. We'd love to continue this discussion, but that's all the time we have for this inclusive session. So once again, thank you. And but before we go, we'd like to ask both gentlemen for their parting messages. Secretary Carl, please convey more of that optimism to our audience because we really need it right now. Go ahead.
Well, thank you very much, Dax and Inquirer, for this opportunity to share. Let me just highlight the messages that I mentioned. The reason why I say that the economy is strong enough to recover, if we enable it to do so, is because the economy hasn't lost its productive capacity. The infrastructure are there, the reforms are there, the people, the talents are there. It's just that our policy has prevented them from operating. And that is why we are now moving from a policy of risk aversion to managing the risk, because we know that we have the potential. And if we do open up, all the economic data that we have seen show to the progress, but we can do more and better. Let me also make a point that we are for the opening of the economy, not because we want to have the businesses or certain sectors profit from it. It's because everyone participates in the economy, people's incomes and jobs and their resources to address their own needs, their mental health, their other sickness, their cancer. are all important. That is why this is not really about economy versus health. It's really about the lives of the people, a holistic appreciation of the lives of the people, whether it is COVID or non-COVID, including hunger. So that is why our policy going forward is to manage the risk, open the economy safely, so that we can give back all the opportunities that the people have benefited from and will contribute to our recovery. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Sanz, let's have some of that entrepreneurial optimism rub off on the audience. Your turn.
Thank you, Dax. Thank you, Inquirer, and thank you, Secretary Carl, for the optimism. And I guess where we are coming from is we are very grateful for the support of the government in opening up the economy and putting up more consumer confidence. What we are experiencing now and in 2021. So I guess it's really. I know the pandemic, the lockdowns were really a setback for a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of businesses. But again, in every crisis, there's always opportunity, and it's up to the person, it's up to the entrepreneur to see and find these opportunities. It doesn't mean that we become reckless and just jump into anything or even be reckless with our health. Of course, these are given things in living with the virus. But again, I think now is a time to open everyone's eyes for opportunities. For those who want to go into business, franchising may be the first step because you have your the support of or the partnership of your franchisor. And I think there are a lot of how do I say it, bounce back, if I may quote it, bounce back packages offered by some franchisors, wherein there are some good deals in getting a franchise. So you might want to consider that and also come up with your own. Of course, it's also a very exciting journey. We have seen a lot of, as I mentioned, a lot of businesses, home kitchens have opened and sprouted during the pandemic. And who knows, the next Jollibee might come from there. The next Mang Inasal might be coming from there. So again, there's a lot of opportunities, but we still have to be careful and not reckless. So thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you for your insights, and I know these were very useful to our viewers. And that's it for our webinar today. Thank you again to our panelists. Thank you for being a part of INQlusive, the Inquirer webinar series presented by the Philippine Daily Inquirer. This live stream event would not have been possible without the help of our sponsor, San Miguel Corporation. Your world made better. Thank you very much to our viewers and speakers. We'd also like to acknowledge the organizations that have partnered with us. Thank you to Inquirer.net and Inquirer Business. And again, thank you to our viewers for being part of the discussion. Continue reading the Philippine Daily Inquirer for authoritative news and features. Once again, I'm Dax Lucas from the Inquirer. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.